Hi guys, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and I did say this is Jim's Fix-It Shop. I didn't say it's Snapper Repair, so we got to give equal billing to, I guess, everyone. So now we're going to tear apart a Ariens snowblower, and it's about 25 years old, and the bushings for the back axle are almost non-existent. I mean, they're really bad. They're to the point where the large differential gear doesn't even touch the pinion and sprocket gear anymore. They just slip past each other. So we're going to take it apart, see how bad it really is. Some of the parts we're going to make because, well, guess whose this is? We got his lawnmower put together. Now we're going to tear apart the boss's snowblower. So some of the parts we're going to make at work because these are extremely expensive. The large differential gear is, where is it here? $389. Now that's a differential assembly. I don't know what they're including in that, but the little arrow is just pointing to the large gear, and there's no way we're going to pay $389 for one gear. We'll make one first. So let's tear this thing apart and see what we find. Okay, first thing I want to do is take this back cover off. And it should get me a container to put the bolts in. I've got some old plastic freezer containers they used to have years ago. I don't even think they make them anymore. Might have to take them all the way out. Okay, there's that. Put it down here someplace. Now we want to take the tires off. Okay, this thing looks a little greasy. Maybe I'll put my gloves on. Now we got a couple cotter keys here on a, looks like a 1/4 inch diameter pin, and we have, for some reason they have a snap ring on here. Yeah, you can hear that turn, huh? Yeah, we got to take off. This tire comes right off, and you can see, let me move this camera a minute. We'll move this thing by hand. I want you to see the difference between the axle and the bushing. That's about as wore out as you can get. Now on the other side, to get these bushing plates off, and I want to mark them, let me grab a marker. Now these triangular aluminum plates that hold the bushings are not perfectly shaped. They only go on one way. So I want to keep track of the top for right now. pop that off of there. Some of these also look like they're self-locking, so they may come off hard. And this tire I cannot get off the axle. So we're going to have to reach in here and take these nuts off this plate. And I'll be right back because that's going to take a couple minutes. Now we're going to pull this axle out and the tire in one piece. May need a little help. A little rubber hammer never hurt anything. There we go. Now if we can slide this out of here. Here's the $389 gear that's held onto the shaft. It's a slip fit and it's held on with a Woodruff key. Now this axle I cannot get out. I've tried it. It won't push out of here. So what we're going to have to do is it's got two pins in here, roll pins. We're going to knock them out and we're going to take this flange off, cut the axle and drill it out of the hub. Because we got a really bad war spot right here and probably under here where this bushing is riding. So we're going to just replace the axle. It's cheaper for us to make a new one than it is to order one of those. Now if we can get this one off. See if we can pop that out of there. Well, that does not want to come off for some reason. There we go. And again, we're going to repair these. We'll press these pieces of brass out at work and machine up new ones and press them in, and we'll just reuse these rather than buy new ones. Now we'll try to get this shaft out of here. See how that works out. Get on this side, see I'm right-handed. Not much to that. Now this is the shaft that the clutch disc slides on for shifting your gears and into reverse. Basically it's the same drive system as most all these machines have, and that's the same as the snappers. Okay, to get this shaft out that has the pinion on, we got a roll pin in here we got to knock out. And I got some punches that are made for roll pins. You can see on the end of the punch, it's got a pin sticking up. That's so when you get it into the roll pin, it won't slide off on you when you're trying to knock it out. And they work extremely nice. I have to say it's not too bad tearing stuff apart when you have the right tools to do it. Now this chain, I don't know if it has a master link in it or not. If it doesn't, it's going to be a little hard getting it off of here. And I don't see one. No, I don't. Well, I'll have to pull the shaft out of here. Guess first, I'll unscrew that grease fitting that's in the end of the shaft. If I can hold it. Get another pair of pliers. Okay, we got that grease fitting loose. But this style doesn't screw in, it presses in. It's just got a smooth end on it. Now we should be able to pull this shaft out of here. Get this pinion gear out of here. Oh yeah, that one's really worn out. Now if we can get this shaft out. A little harder to get this apart because these side covers don't come off like the snapper does. So you just gotta wiggle stuff out of here. Now if we can get this out, I have to take a look at that. I've never had one of these apart before. Okay, now you need a 9/16 wrench and a 3/4 inch socket to get the nut off the end of this hex shaft. And this hex shaft is what the clutch disc slides back and forth on, so you can shift your different speeds. And that would be the bushing and the washer. This is just a retainer that holds in the shaft. Now we can get this chain off. The sprocket slides off the end of the hex shaft. Now this mounts into a standard bearing, which is shot. Now this is one of my many bearing tools that I have. This is for pulling a bearing when you can't get a hold of the outside of it, or if you can't press it out. You can pull it out with this. This is a sliding hammer. The only problem with this is if this was a good bearing, you do not want to use this, because I'm going to be pulling against the inner race And all the jarring from this hammer is going to be driven into the balls, which is going to drive it into the outer race. It's totally going to destroy this bearing. But it's the easiest way to get a bad bearing out. Now this one works the same way, it's just smaller. It goes into a smaller bearing. When I looked at that, I kind of judged the wrong diameter. That other one wouldn't fit in it. Now when you slide this through the inner race, you turn this rod and it spreads them fingers apart. That's how it grips the bearing. Usually when you're going, it's going to pop out a couple of times. You got to put it back in before it knocks the bearing all the way out. Kind of like that. And there's your bearing. But like I said, you do not want to do that to a good bearing. Whoops. Or it would be junk. Now, what's left in here? Now we can pull the hex shaft out, the hole, seeing the bearing's not in the way. And that also has a Woodruff key on it that drives this gear. Might as well slip that back on there. Yeah, I think we're going to have to take that out. That's about as wiggly and wore out as everything else is. Okay, to get this big nut off of here, this is your clutch assembly. You need a 1.25 inch socket, but there's nothing to hang on to use a ratchet. So it's actually easier if you use an impact to get this off and just hold on to it by hand. Spin it right off. Now you got to put the socket on first because you can't get it through this access hole. So put the socket on the nut, put your extension through the hole, and just hang on to this clutch and hit the trigger. It'll spin that self-locking nut right off of there. Now if we shift this back over, get me a little room, we can get that off. Now the hub that rides on is got a hexed hole in it. It goes through the clutch assembly. Then it goes through this aluminum bracket. Then you have this spacer. Then you have the big nut. So what we want to do, we want to get the bearing out of this bracket that's in here. And I don't know if I want to tear this whole thing apart if I don't have to. I'm going to try to get to this snap ring and take it out and get the bearing out without tearing everything else apart. So let me grab my pliers. We'll see what we can do. Now what I like about this particular pair of snap ring pliers, once you get the ring compressed, the pliers lock and it holds the ring there so you can get it in or out without having to hold it compressed or expanded to remove it. Now to get the bearing out, I think we're going to have to tap it out. I'm not really sure. Okay, we got this bearing out. That slides, or I should say rotates inside this bracket. And that's what the clutch assembly spins inside of. And it's wore out. 20 years of rotating, I think that's enough. It does have a number on here, so I'll order new bearings from Applied Industrial. That's where I get my bearings from. That's where I get all my bearing tools from. And we've got this stripped down as far as we got to go. Now we just got to make parts and put it back together. Okay, that's it. We got it stripped down. Now we just got to make parts. So probably be a while before we get all these made, especially get that axle out of that wheel. That will probably be the most difficult part of this whole build. And when I find an easy way to do it, I'll make sure I let you know. If you have any questions or comments, put them in that box below. I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. I am really swamped with emails. I'm getting 200 to 300 a week. So it's taken me a while to get back. Don't give up, I'm working on it. If it's something that a simple question, go through some of the videos that I have. I cover just about everything on these builds. So I guess don't forget to subscribe. Work safe, have fun, and maybe we'll blow snow this year and maybe we won't. Talk to you later.